Hello, ladies and gentlemen, Deja Vu here with Varosh, and this is going to be the final match of Group D. It is going to be Bisu and Flash. So this should be really fun. Bisu just coming fresh off his victory against C, Flash coming off his loss against Jaedong. So I almost think that in the final match, coming out of the elimination match is actually like a better place to come from because you've come off of a victory. I don't know if there's any truth to that, or if I'm just talking out of my butt, but I've always felt that if I was coming out of the elimination match with a victory, that I would feel a little bit more confident, and it's a little bit of an advantage in terms of momentum in the final match. But when you're talking about Bisu and Flash, how much do all those things mean? Well, I guess they actually kind of mean a lot because they're the differences between them are so small, and it's just the smallest things that could actually turn the tide of battle. So I think every little thing can help, can count, and that's just another little thing that I am considering in looking at who could win this match. Here we go. We are starting. Here's the player list, and we are going to hit accept right about now. So there we go. Let's hand it over to Varosh. I think this is how we've been doing most of the games. As soon as I get my my timestamp, hand it over to Varosh, and let him give us his thoughts on the game.
I love how we have to sync by the accept button because that big obnoxious banner blocks the countdown on the preview screen. That's unfortunate. About psychology, I think Flash has got the psychological advantage in this game because having started at such a disadvantage to Bisu, coming back and winning that game it makes you think you can't lose. I'm just going to play I expect Flash to play standard. He will think, I just need to play standard in this game, and I will surely win because I can even beat him playing from behind. I don't need to do anything tricky. And just before this game gets too exciting and we get too far into it, I want to go ahead and apologize to everybody for mentioning StarCraft 2 at all in the last game. I want you to know that Brood War is a better game than StarCraft 2. I'm sorry for mentioning StarCraft 2 in your Brood War cast. If you left me a nasty comment on the last video, it's okay. I'm sorry, and I hope you'll give me another shot. I guess that's all I want to say to the fans.
And I think we all accept your apology that they are different games, and I really just don't think that the meta games for either one will ever apply to the other, just because the games are so different. So that's really the only reason I don't bother trying to bring in SC2 into SC1. Is the games are just too different. So ignoring that, we'll just let that one go. We do have no super greedy openings yet from either player. We could have a barracks into CC from Flash, and I would almost expect it. The only reason that I would say maybe not is because the last time he went barracks into CC, what did Bisu do? He went Gateway Zealot harassment and ended up just absolutely killing him with pure zealots going on the harass. And you know, I would not be surprised at all to see Bisu go for that again, simply because it was so effective the last time he did it. Granted, it was on Aztec, which is a Protoss favored map as it is, but going with all those zealots, doing as much harassment as they did during the Winners League Finals, it's got to be something that Bisu's thinking about in terms of how is he going to get a win, how is he going to get an early advantage, and that is definitely one route that I think he could take. And we have a pylon already coming up, so I think we are going to see an early zealot, and that should, well, actually that core is pretty going to, so, but we could still see a zealot, and we could see some early pressure going on, and with the 1-rack CC, you are a little bit vulnerable to early zealot pressure.
Yeah, interestingly, both players scouting at the exact same moment, and oh, great SCV block on the ramp by Flash. He's actually going to prevent, well, Bisu's going to see the command center get started, so that's not going to make too much of a difference because he knows exactly what Flash is going for, but great by Flash just killing that killing that probe from Bisu. It was really interesting. They met at the exact halfway point between their bases, so they sent out that scout at exactly the same instant in the game. That was really cool. And I don't know what Flash is doing scouting the bottom right. Did he actually go into Bisu's base and completely miss it? Because he's scouting the other two positions right now. Or did he see the probe and then immediately divert to the bottom right because he thought Bisu was following an earlier scouting pattern that he scouted on Gateway and that he was coming from the third position? Either way, Flash having the opportunity to get a really early scout, but is not going to be able to, and he's getting the 1-racks into CC, or he's getting the bunker up to secure his 1-racks into CC now, and I think Terrans feel a little bit safer with that bunker than they should, because it does prevent Dragoons. It does prevent Dragoons from running in and doing a lot of damage, but Zealots, they've got so many hit points that they can run by into the main. That is an option, although we saw it work once really well for Bisu, but overall I think most Terrans can micro with their Marines pretty well and hold that off. What is Flash doing with this SCV, Deja Vu? Do you have any more of a clue than I do?
You know, you mentioned it, and then I kind of just started getting confused. Perhaps all it is that he's worried about procs. I can't imagine him missing it. You know, you see that the SCV head towards the correct base, start going up the ramp, and you just assume that he's going to scout it, right? And you just forget about it, and that's basically what happened for me. I don't remember how deep into the base it went. I just assumed, you know, which can be bad, but I just assumed that he had gone in there and seen it. So I'm going to assume that he was looking around for proxies, because it's hard to imagine anything else. I mean, he hasn't really, at the same point, he hasn't really scouted out the proxy locations as well as you'd like. If he went to the 6 o'clock position, he'd want him to go a little bit farther south. And you know, Bisu putting that probe on the ramp, maybe he thinks that it wasn't scouted out as well. So perhaps he's in the same boat as you are, and thinking that Flash maybe outthought himself and kind of messed up his scouting pattern. And there goes the SCV. It does fall. It kind of gets barely up the ramp, one gateway, but that's really not information to really mean too much. And sorry, Varosh, I accidentally clicked my my keyboard. That's why I accidentally left the channel there for a second. But Bisu actually darting in here, looks like he's going to try and get a SCV, and he does with this Zealot Dragoon combination, actually doing some harassment, sneaking that SCV into the natural SCV line, so it could do a little bit of damage there. Just being really harassment, it's going to get a really good scout on. So that's going to be the end result of that. Zealot is just going to be some really nice scouting.
It was beautiful by Bisu that he got that SCV in, or that he got that Zealot in, and he's gonna get a full scout on what Flash is going for, and maybe do a little bit of damage, although it looks like it's going to die to some Vulture and Tank, and Bisu going for a really, really early third. Flash didn't get up that ramp at all to actually scout into Bisu's base, and as a result he went for extremely early turrets. He actually got a turret up by the 5-minute mark in the game, so getting that engineering bay and turrets up really, really fast, because he feared DTs, because he scouted that the natural expansion nexus was late for Bisu, and that Bisu might be going for a DT rush, but instead Bisu went for the one gateway into robotics facility, so not going for DT rush, and that early engineering bay tech was a little bit of a waste, just like 225 minerals, or 200 minerals or whatever, I can't do math, down the drain kind of early for no real benefit.
Yeah, I guess he was just kind of concerned. Yeah, he just was very, very concerned, playing very, very defensively. It almost seems like he's pseudo-handicapping himself again for another victory. But I mean, it's not a real handicap. You know, he's still gonna. Those turrets can still come into play. They do help him against drops and any sort of Reaver play, those kinds of things. They still do help, and they also help with this observer that's coming into play right now, looking to get a scout on and continue Bisu's information advantage. The turrets will usher those observers away and stop him from getting a very, very important factory count. A couple Vultures here getting to the third base of Bisu. Looks like they're going to get a couple kills, and Flash building his third command center, and he will take his mineral only. Actually, no, that's not a mineral only. His inside third base, and Bisu is scouting that out very well right now. So Bisu scouting that out, knowing that that is there, possibly could go for a strategy that puts him in a position to delay that, or even take that down completely and try and find that gap in Flash's push-out. That is definitely a possibility for him, despite the fact he is somewhat limited on unit count. Once again, he's going to have that opportunity because of that quality scouting information coming from the observers.
Alright, so we see that Bisu is going for a Citadel of Adun right now. Ooh, more Vultures getting into the mineral line and actually doing some decent harassment. And there's only four probes at that third base now. So Flash doing a really good job keeping that worker count down over there. I would expect Bisu to be just going for arbiters in this game, just like he did versus C, and the whole playing interestingly, going for carriers didn't work at all for him, so I would just expect him to go with the much more standard arbiter play that we see in almost every Protoss versus Terran. I really don't want to see Bisu lose this game going for another stupid strategy. He skipped Reavers completely again, which is pretty common these days, but nonetheless, I'm sad to see it, because Bisu's Shuttle Reaver Micro is so good that it's always nice to see. And Flash, meanwhile, landing his third base and adding on some more factories to make use of that boosted economy. And Flash is looking in a pretty good position. Bisu's been playing kind of passively lately. He's lost some probes. He's on equal bases, and Flash is getting his upgrades and macroing up pretty well. Okay, we're seeing a Stargate and a Templar Archives, and their timing is pretty close. So it looks like he's probably going to just throw down an Arbitral Tribunal and not this time, not a Fleet Beacon there, and just go for a much more standard play, especially because the Stargate's right next to the Templar Archives. That's usually what we see.
One would think, but you know, last time we saw this, there was no Arbiter Tribunal, and I just saw a building go down next to that Templar Archives before it warped in. I'm hoping it's a pylon or another Stargate, and that it wasn't a Fleet Beacon, and he's not trying to do this like trickeration thing again. I'm sure the announcers, if it is a Fleet Beacon, my viewers will know that I tend to get somewhat annoyed with the announcers, because if that is a Fleet Beacon, they won't show us for 3 minutes, and carriers will suddenly pop out and they'll be like, oh, where did these carriers come from? And it does sometimes get annoying how they hide information from us when they know. But I'm just going to assume that it's a pylon and that we're going to have arbiters coming your way, because there's no other option that seems very appropriate considering the map and the situation he's in. He's got to go arbiters, I would think, and some vultures coming here trying to play some mines and kill off a pylon. It seems like Flash cares a little too much about that pylon. Maybe he's trying to goad some dragoons into that mine, but there was an observer in play, so nothing doing there. We do have a shuttle around as well, and for Zealot bombs, possibly transition into High Templar as well if he does go the storm route, which is always cool if he can get them. We've seen some good storms out of some Protoss versus Terran games recently, and that would be very fun to see that again. And on the other side, we have Flash macroing up hardcore. Looks like he's about 7 or 8 factories, opposed to about 8 or 9 gateways for Bisu. So both players macroing up hardcore, and that was a forge that was placed next to that Arbiter, or next to that Templar Archive. So Goki on his upgrades is Bisu, and he is confirmed. This time we have a confirmation. We have a visual sighting of an Arbiter Tribunal, so we know for sure that that Stargate is for Arbiters this time.
Yeah, and when I looked at this map for the first time, I noticed that the third base, that you could not wall that off with pylons, but apparently no one told that to Bisu, because he tried to wall it off with pylons, but vultures just ran up straight to the pylons and were still able to pick off some probes that we just saw right there, so not doing so well with that pylon wall off, but it is a decent idea, and it prevents the vultures from getting into the mineral lines and hanging out directly with those probes. It limits them to just taking some pot shots, and Bisu, meanwhile, trying to take a 4th base at the 12 o'clock. That's going to go up and boost his economy nicely, and he's on another mine-clearing expedition meanwhile, and he's got a shuttle, probably with 4 zealots inside, to drop on top of tanks. But Flash is being really careful with turrets. He's got a lot of turrets everywhere, and everywhere that his tanks are especially, so it would be really hard for any zealot bombs to go off on that with the shuttle surviving that, so that's pretty good. And double armory again. Flash, he's tending more towards this double armory style lately these days. Wants to get those double upgrades when it's kind of unusual, because a lot of times we just see weapons upgrades in this matchup. The Terran just focus on getting weapons 3, and we see 3-0 or 3-1 actually is more common. Oh, vultures running in and doing a little bit more harassment, but a bunch of vultures dying there. And is Bisu trying to take a 5th? Great vulture placement by Flash, picking off the probe that was going to take the 5th. That's actually a huge moment for Flash, because it's going to delay the 5th base another 30 seconds. That's great.
Yeah, that is a very important vulture, actually. And one of the things is this 2-1 push that's going to be coming. It's actually been a pretty common build for a while. Basically, on any map where you can get a solid 3 bases relatively comfortably, which in this case, this map would definitely fall into that category. A 2-1 timing push is actually really nice, because you do get, because that double upgrade in with the 3 gas is very easy to get, and you can still get a huge number of tanks, which we see right now, and you end up pushing out at, I think the side count when you push out with the 2-1 is something like 170, 180, somewhere in there, and then what's left over is you're anticipating arbiters, and you get a couple side vessels taking up the last bit of that, and getting your new command center, your 4th base, those kinds of things. So this is kind of this is a build that we've seen before. It's just a build that you see a lot on basically on where you can get to 3 bases is where it gets real popular, and Flash is definitely over preparing right now, hardcore preparing for recalls. We saw a ton of turrets and mines placed in his base, and Vultures again going in for some harassment. There are 3 cannons, but none of them actually defending his mineral lines. What the heck was that, Bisu? None of them actually defending much of anything, and virtually every single probe goes down. There's 1 left, so those Vultures being worth definitely their cost, taking down that basically in that entire mining base. So even though Bisu has all these bases, he doesn't have enough workers for all of them. He's lost, what, in this game, 15, 18 probes in this game? So many. And now we got 1-1. I'm sure the second weapons is just about completed. There it is, 2-1 upgrades. Science vessels pushing in. So here comes the big push, and this is going to be the point of the game where everything's really gets decided. That Arbor looks like it got emptied recently, so no stasis coming in very shortly here. So Bisu's going to have to be really careful here with his engagements and really make sure that he comes in with a good flank, comes in at an appropriate time. Otherwise, we could see him fall if he doesn't have any EMPs in those supporting Arbiters.
I don't think there's going to be any way for Bisu to hold off this push. Flash's entire... If nothing by Flash has gotten harassed this entire game, aside from that Zealot that came in at around the 4.5-minute mark. But actually, the Zealot's doing really, really nicely. This is such a like long push that there's just reinforcing tanks behind. But Bisu doing a really unexpectedly good job of holding off that push unbelievably well, just based on the fact that he lost about 20 probes and Flash lost about 1 SCV this entire game. I thought that Flash was going to be much more successful, but Bisu doing a really, really good job, and Flash elects, instead of that push out, which kind of got half killed, just trying to do some harassment and scouting the 5th base. I do believe that's the first time he's been up there. And just an interesting note, that pylon that 10 minutes ago he worked so hard to kill is now the sole pylon powering one of the cannons, so that's a pointless if interesting note.
I always depend on you, Varosh, to find those little things. That is awesome. I will still never forget the game that we cast. It was working off a replay. I gave Varosh the camera, which I don't think I will ever allow again. There were storm drops going all over the map.
You're making fun of the Korean cameras. You're making fun of the Korean camera operators, but I'm a lot worse.
Varosh was sitting there pointing at a cockaroo and pointing at it and being like, ooh, this cockaroo looks really pretty. So that was the point of the game for a while. We've got an Arbiter over here on the left side looking to go for a recall, but he's going to back off. And Vultures again coming to the 12 o'clock position. And now I'm just getting a little bit frustrated with Bisu again losing all of the probes that were over there. And Bisu's going to go for the recall anyways. And how successful will this be? He does get it off. And there's like 4 units left. So after the mines and considering what he recalled, there was a grand total of 4 units left, and this will get cleaned up with ease. I'm sorry, there was 6 units. 6 units total. And that is almost cleaned up already, so that recall doing virtually nothing and kind of wasteful. I mean, he really would rather save that another 30 seconds and have 2 stasis, I would think, and that would be far better for him, but he loses that. That's a ploy that doesn't really work. We've got Flash taking his 4th base at the 6 o'clock position, Bisu taking what would be his 6th base at the top right. So still looking to try and maintain that economic advantage. So as long as he's able to continuously pump out units and make a second reinforcing route, which will appear at the top right any minute now, he'll still be in good shape. And Bisu could come here to the 6 o'clock position, take down this base. Looks instead he's going to go for the military. There is an army for Flash that was coming in to defend, and Bisu is going to go, and those are asking to be stasis. Big stasis going off on 3 or 4 tanks. They are asking to be hit with so many stasis. Here it comes. There's going to be some more. There's another big stasis. If there's any more, this could be absolutely ridiculous. Oh, man. Looks like that was all that Bisu had in there, but the potential there for like one of those 8 tank stasis was huge. Flash was forced to lift off that command center at the 6 o'clock, so at least that was accomplished. But right now, Bisu doesn't have a huge army on the field. This army at the 6 o'clock position is quite depleted. Not a whole lot of anything other than a few Dragoons and some Arbiters left, and it will fall eventually, and he needs to keep this army alive as long as he can, so that way he can reinforce back at home at both of his rally points. So this is going to be important how long this stays alive. It doesn't look like they're going to be around much longer. And hopefully for Bisu, this is enough that he's got forces reinforcing. Otherwise, we could see a counter push by Flash once his army gets unstasised.
I think think Flash is going to go for a really powerful counter push. Oh, that shuttle the shuttle got caught in the stasis. As the stasis wears off, it gets massacred by turrets. But Bisu lost his entire army in that. He's remaxing as quickly as possible. He does have quite a few gateways, but Flash barely lost any units in that engagement. He got most of his units stasis, and actually didn't end up losing that many units. So now this really powerful push is coming into Bisu's base, and Bisu's got almost no units to deal with it. You can see he's just got a tiny force and then reinforcements coming out. I don't know how Bisu's going to be able to deal with this. The tanks are sieging up, and Bisu's being forced to engage. Vultures running in, but they can't even get to the bulk of the tanks. That is a good stasis that went off. That's actually a really good stasis, getting like 9 units in one stasis. That might have saved the game for Bisu, because otherwise I think he might have lost to that push.
Look at the number of tanks. This is nuts. Just so many tanks. Bisu just has not been able to keep that tank count low. There goes another station casting a couple more tanks in both science vessels, which is important. And shuttle coming in here with zealot bombs, but not enough. No Templar here. I really think that Bisu at this point needs Templar to fight this back. Just so many tanks, layer after layer. You see this very long line of tanks, layer after layer, and that is a huge blob of Dragoons that goes down. And that may actually end up being the death blow, because the Dragoons just take so much longer to produce than Zealots. And as long as you keep your Dragoons alive when you're a Protoss player, you can at least reinforce with Zealots and try and maintain your fight. But once you start losing those Dragoons and you've got to spend all of that time rebuilding them, you really end up getting into trouble. And here we have a DT coming into play. So while those science vessels aren't scanned, yeah, well, there's the scan, and there goes that. So this push is just too big right now. I can't imagine Bisu being able to fight this off. I think this is just going to be too much with those fully upgraded mech army, 3-2 if not 3-3. Just so much damage. Base after base falling. 12 o'clock's going to fall. The third base is going to fall. So he'll be left to the top right, and whatever's left at his main, and that will be it. And Flash will be free to take the bottom right or the 9 o'clock, whatever he wishes. Really, he'll be able to expand at will.
Yeah, I always say that the Dark Templar is the panic button for Protoss. Oh my God! The Nexus was left at like 10 HP for like a really long time. I'm sorry about making a big fuss about that. But you really know a Protoss is desperate when he makes a DT against a Terran army that has 3 science vessels hovering above it, detecting every little thing. That was a really confusing play by Bisu, and I think he made it kind of because he was desperate. Losing 2 of his bases there, Bisu in kind of awful position right now. There's very little that he can do to stay in this game now that the Terran has an equal or even superior army to him. Getting some good stasis there, but the tanks just go so deep. He's got about 2/3 of the tank's stasis actually at this point, but still doesn't have enough Zealots and Dragoons to actually fight off the Terran force, and the Vultures and the few tanks that are left unstasis just getting the job done, and Bisu with another round of reinforcements, actually a lot of units coming out, but they're probably going to come in right before the Terran units get unstasis, and once they are freed from their stasis prisons, there's going to be almost nothing that Bisu is going to be able to do to deal with this, short of some more stasis. Oh, good storms! He finally got some high Templar out, and storming. Yeah, that was actually pretty good, and he's able to deal with most of this force, but what he hasn't accounted for is that there's like 10 more units that are about to come out of stasis, and even before they come out of stasis, Bisu GG's. That's kind of funny. He's like, oh, I can't deal with that army. Oh well, GG, I have no economy.
There's portions of that game where there was more of Flash armies in stasis than not in stasis, and it was still winning battles. That is absolutely outrageous. Bisu getting a little bit outclassed there by Flash. I thought it was pretty even in the early game, but Flash getting some good harassment in, and that was enough to set Bisu far enough back that Flash just ends up with much stronger pushes, and that's that's almost a smack in the face of Bisu, out harassing Bisu. Bisu's well known as the harassive Protoss, the #1 harassing Protoss, and particularly in PvZ, but I think in all of his matchups he's usually very harassive, and that game he just got out harassed by Flash, and the economic damage ended up taking its toll. Are they fighting over the t-shirt?
Yeah, that's actually really funny. So this group of death really lived up to its name this time, and we have Flash and Jaedong, what some would consider to be the 2 best players in the world, making it out. All 5 of those games were really entertaining, and I'm glad to have casted them with you, Deja Vu. Thank you everybody who has watched with us, and I'll see you in the MSL round of 16 or in the other groups, I suppose.
Yeah, I think we have a little bit of work left to do, Varosh. We got, I think we got 2 groups left. I think I got 1. You got the really Cal group, and then I've got Fantasies group, and then that will be done by until the round of 16. So there we go. We got 2 groups left for each, 1 group left for each of us, and then we'll see you guys all in the round of 16. So yeah, I will see you guys all later. Hope you guys enjoyed these games. They were quite amazing.